And it looks like we're live. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for this very first episode of a series that we're calling Press Publish. This is going to be a series in which I talk to fellow newsletter writers about writing newsletters because there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of work, there's struggles, there's exhilaration, and there are always some things we're proud of and some things we'd like to have done differently. It's just so much fun also to talk to other people who are in the trenches with us, doing the same kind of thing, facing similar struggles or maybe different ones. And what we really want to do is learn from each other. All of us together, we're here redefining the media horizon, really. And there's not much communication about what we do, why we do what we do, and also just talking to each other. So thank you so much for joining us. This is my very first Substack Live, so I'm crossing fingers nothing goes desperately wrong. And if any of you have any advice or you see me doing something that could be done better, do please let me know. Because it's my very first one, there is no one that I'm more excited to start this off with than my very good friend and former colleague, Christine Kim, who has, apart from being a wonderful person, one of the most interesting stories, in my opinion, in newsletter writing. Now, Christine is a fellow crypto analyst coming at it from a very different angle, but we're not going to be talking about crypto today. That's for a whole separate conversation. This is just going to be about why and how we do what we do, about newsletter writing. And also in the case of Christine, she does a lot of audio and video as well. And so we'll be hearing from her about that. So again, thank you everyone who's signing in. And I believe there's a live chat open. Again, this is my first time, so bear with me. If you have questions, feel free to throw them in there. Christine and I will talk for probably half an hour. We could easily talk for 3 hours, but we're going to try and keep it relatively brief out of respect for all of your time. And at the end, I'll do a roundup of questions if there are any. So, Christine, hi, how are you today?
Hi, Noelle. Thanks for having me. I'm doing great. Happy it's Friday.
Oh, that's right. This week has been absolutely insane. But again, we're not going to be talking about how crazy things are out there. We know that already. I'm sure all of you joining us know that too. That seems to be the baseline for today. But Christine, thanks for being here. And I would love it if you could start off, please, by telling the viewers about your background, how you got here, how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, happy to. Hi, everyone. I'm Christine. I graduated back in 2018. I'm going way back with a degree in economics and international relations from the University of British Columbia. And my first job out of college was as a intern, a news reporter at CoinDesk. And that was really my first foray into the crypto industry. I knew nothing about crypto. I mean, I knew a little bit. I wasn't completely green going into the job. In order for me to get the job, I had to show that I was somewhat interested in crypto. But I would say that that internship was really what set me off on a whole new career trajectory. Once I did the internship at CoinDesk, I was hired on full time as a reporter. And as I was reporting, I was working also alongside Noelle, who was the head of research at CoinDesk. And she graciously, I would say, took me under her wing and helped me to transition to a job as a full-time researcher, a research analyst, from being a reporter. I think this was probably my second year into my job at CoinDesk, my full-time job at CoinDesk. And then I was working as a research analyst for a year at CoinDesk with Noelle. And then CoinDesk started to wind down its research team, in which case all of us needed to find new homes. Noelle, you moved on to greener pastures, and I moved on to joining a research team at Galaxy, which is where I was most recently, helping cover Ethereum for their research team. And then, after doing that for a couple of years, I branched off on my own to start my own publication and do my own thing, which is what I'm doing now, covering Bitcoin and Ethereum development. So that I would say is a nutshell of my journey from when I was a young college graduate now to being a crypto veteran, I would say.
There's a lot more to that journey than Christine lets on. I also have to caveat that I had to fight to get her on the research team. There are a lot of different teams wanting Christine on their side when we were at CoinDesk, but I'm very glad to say that I won, and the research team was so much better for it. But Christine, before we go into more detail on what your products are today, what made you want to leave a very comfortable and arguably well paid job at a big name research team, vice president as well, to into the sort of shark infested waters of self employment and content producing?
It wasn't an easy decision, Noelle. You know this from the many calls that we had as I was thinking about making this jump. It was a tough decision. But I think really, when I think about this and reflect on this question, what really pushed me to do it and make the jump is that I really wanted to take a bet on myself. I wanted to try building my own company and seeing if I could make it. I felt like there would be no better time in my life to try and believe in myself in this way. And every time I think back on the decision, I always think that the younger version of myself would never have had believed in herself enough to do something like this, but through the encouragement and through the mentorship, I would say, of people like you and others in this industry kind of encouraging me and telling me that I have the skills and I have the talent to try and pursue something of my own. That's really what made me take the jump.
You certainly do have the skills and talent, but it's such a brave decision. I mean, you and I both know so many people who think about doing something similar. After all, working for yourself is, in my opinion, the ultimate luxury. But again, leaving a comfortable job with a good salary into the unknown, that takes a lot of backbone. And are you glad you did it?
Yes, I am. Every day that I wake up and I don't have to ask someone about whether I should publish a particular article, I don't need to wait for anybody's review or editing. I can just publish and I can ideate new projects that I want to try out. And I don't need anyone's permission or approval. I can just do it. That always gives me a bit of joy and glee in my day.
And the freedom to go deeper into what interests you, not what your firm thinks will make more money. And I don't know about you, but the lack of meetings or only meetings you want.
Yeah, 100%. I can schedule out the day as I see fit. If I wanted to take a half day, I can do that without having to get the permission of someone else. It is a luxury, I would say, that also comes at a bit of a high cost of also trying to be responsible with my time and my schedule. But that kind of a balance, I think, it comes with time, and it also comes with continuing to believe in yourself, not just for the initial jump, but every single day you're at it, just like constantly reassuring yourself of this is something that you can do and something that will pay off in the future.
Yeah, it does take some self-talk sometimes, doesn't it? Because we all have days in which we think, "Why do I do this?" And so, just the pep talk is part of it, but also interacting with your audience can help a lot also. Hi, everyone who's joining us. Thank you so much. Hi, Maggie. Hi, David. So good to see you all here and everyone else as well. Again, questions, feel free to throw them in, and I'm getting a feel for how this works. Again, for those of you who've just joined, this is my very first Substack Live, and there's no one I'd rather be doing it with than Christine. Now, onto your output, Christine. I mean, even when you were at CoinDesk, you were regarded, even back then, as one of the authoritative voices on the Ethereum ecosystem. I mean, we know of many Ethereum developers that wouldn't talk to CoinDesk until you came on the scene and started actually providing a balanced voice and a deep insight into the development of arguably one of the most fascinating ecosystems in crypto. So, what is your output today?
Today, I run 2 weekly newsletters, one that covers the Ethereum developments, and the other that covers Bitcoin developments. It's ACD After Hours and BTC Before Light. And then I also have a weekly podcast called Ready for Merge that synthesizes the high-level updates for Bitcoin and Ethereum development. And on some weeks, I'll have guests. So I'll invite on developers from these ecosystems and talk about what they do, maybe get into a technical topic or project that they're working on. So yes, those would be my products. And I am excited to also announce very first on this show on Press Publish that
Breaking
I
news, breaking
breaking
news.
news, that I will be hosting my first event um, next Friday in New York City. That will be just a meetup, a happy hour for protocol developers and researchers. So that's another series. It's called All Protocol Devs that I'm hoping to kickstart. But it's still new and fresh, which is why I don't want to say it's like formalized yet.
Let's see how it goes. That's really exciting. How can viewers find out more about that?
Yes. So now there's a meetup page as well as a Luma page. If you type in all protocol devs, you'll be able to see all the details for the first event that's happening next Friday, a week from now, in New York City. And yeah, so all protocol devs, meetup or Luma, you'll be able to see the invite there.
That is very cool. Okay, now I want to get into, again, just fascinating idea of you and hanging out with a lot of devs. We'll talk another time about, again, some of the cultural differences you found in your journey in the Ethereum ecosystem, because one of the fascinating aspects of crypto basically is the different cultural factions that we've come across. But that's for a separate conversation. I want to get into some more nitty-gritty about how you do what you do now that we've talked about the why. What does a typical day look like for you?
It's all geared towards my deadlines. I don't have to do this, but I've forced myself to try and make my newsletters go out on the same time and day every single week. So for ACD After Hours, I try and publish my newsletter at 8 p.m. on Thursdays, which means my day on Thursday, it's already set. The morning and afternoon, I'm writing that newsletter. For BTC Before Light, I try and publish at 7 a.m. on Tuesdays. So the Monday before, I know what my schedule looks like. If I want to hit that deadline, I got to work on the newsletter on Monday. And then for my podcast on Ready for Merge, that I kind of keep it flexible, but I try and publish that episode in the afternoon on Wednesdays, so between 12 and 5 p.m. ET, Eastern Time. And so for that, I know that I'm prepping the day before Tuesday for that release. So when it comes to my day to day, it's all revolving around kind of self made deadlines. And because I've made those deadlines, it does help in regulating what my week to week looks like. I know what I'm doing on Monday. I know what I'm doing on Tuesday. I know what I'm doing on Thursday.
I've often been asked, I don't know if you see this also, but why so many deadlines? Why do you produce so much content? And we all know very successful content producers who do it less frequently. What's your answer to that?
I'd say that I got into the wrong assumption that more content is good. So doing something daily or trying to maximize output is always good. But I found that in the beginning, when I was producing almost every single day, producing a new piece of content Monday all the way to Friday, I got burnt out. I was like, this is way too much. And then I reframed the content production around what is the highest value. Basically, do I have something to say? What is a cadence where every single piece of output will contain an insight that I am very convicted about and think is worth sharing with my audience? And when I reframed it in that sense, I started to adjust my deadlines and adjust my content so that every single time a piece of content comes out, I know that there will be enough material or time between my content where I'll have enough time to formulate a very thought out piece of insight. And that so happened that for me, it was once a week around Bitcoin development and once a week around Ethereum development. However, I would say that for newsletter writers, such as yourself, Noel, where you're talking about the macro developments of what's going on with crypto, every single day there is something crazy happening. And this time, I do think that every time I read your newsletters, it's an insight that you've had the time to formulate and to think out and to believe that this is something readers should know or will offer help and information to readers and to keep them up to date. So that's kind of like one piece of advice I'd share to just like newsletter writers or people that are building out your content. Like, what is it that you really want to share with readers, and have you had the time to ensure that the insight that you're sharing is high quality? And for me, I realized I need a week. I need a week to digest and synthesize before I can share. But for other newsletter writers, depending on your topic, it could be once a day. It could be multiple times a day if the updates and the insights that you want to share are, if that's the cadence in which those insights get formulated.
You have hit the nail on the head that it is a very difficult balance to strike. You have given yourself time to think, and in the end, that is what makes your output useful and worth paying for. It's what your subscribers are looking for, because let's face it, there's other sources of information on the Ethereum ecosystem, but you bring your point of view and your thought process, and that's unique. That's worth paying for. I struggle with this because you're so right. There's so much to cover in my field, which is crypto and macro, every single day, and I'm often frustrated that I don't get to everything I want to get to on a particular day because deadlines. I try and publish by 2:30 my time. I'm in Spain. That's 8:30 New York time. It's generally a bit later than that because deadlines. But and I often frustrated also about. I wish I had more time to think about things and pull some bigger threads together. But I also, and this is a confession, I quite enjoy the adrenaline of deadlines. It's exhausting at times, but you press publish, as this is called. You press publish, and that's just a sense of relief washes over you. I go to the kitchen, get some lunch. It's just a really nice divide in the day. So, but it is a tough trade off. What do you wish you had done differently when you were starting out?
One is not putting so much pressure on myself to start immediately. One of the things that I regret is that I launched my Substack, I think 1 week after I left Galaxy. It was my last day at Galaxy. I knew that I had a huge Korea trip. So I'm based out of New York and I have a bunch of family in Korea. I knew that I was going to start my own thing. Um, and I think I really had an opportunity where I could have really just taken some time off from the get go, spent some time with family. But I think there was this like urge in me that was worried that if I didn't start or launch now, I'd lose out on opportunities. Ethereum was about to undergo an upgrade, and I was like, I need to cover the upgrade. So I basically launched my Substack a week after I left left Galaxy and before my Korea trip. And that just put immense pressure on myself that I think was a bit unnecessary. The kind of security and the kind of just feeling at ease with what you're doing, it comes with time. And I think I was putting too much pressure on myself to have it all figured out then and there rather than giving myself more time to just take things a little bit slower. Luckily, I came to my senses after many people were telling me, Christine, like, are you sure you don't want to take a break? So I started my Substack, and then within 3 weeks, I kind of temporarily shut it down. Which also goes to show that no matter what mistake you make, you can always, it's never too late to rewrite it. So I bit the bullet and I just said, okay, just kidding. I'm going to go into hibernation mode for like 2 to 3 months. And I did, and it was a great decision. I think that's exactly what I needed for the reset. So yeah, that's what I would say would be the one thing I might have done differently, but that I eventually did do differently once I worked up the courage to do that.
Yeah, you're rectified, and because in the end, I know that one of the reasons you were thinking about, in taking the jump was, family is super important to you, and the flexibility to be able to go and see your family whenever you wanted as well, and spend as much time with them whenever you wanted. I mean, that is, again, one of life's luxuries, isn't it?
Yes, 100%. And the other thing that I've had a lot more time with is my family and also my faith. My faith is a big part of who I am. And lately, I've just been spending a lot more time um, just, yeah, like reflecting more, I guess, on that part of my identity, which I feel like I just would not have had the bandwidth to do in a 9 to 5 job at Galaxy.
Yeah. Yeah, there are many, many things that a good salary just can't buy you, and time in the end is the ultimate luxury of life. So again, I have never regretted sacrificing that to have more time for what I care about.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
Now, I want to talk about some of the mechanics of how you produce what you produce. Your newsletters are on Substack, right?
Yes.
And how do you do your video?
So for my podcasts, I record them on Riverside.
And how's that work? You record on Riverside, you then upload to Substack, is that right?
Yes. So for Riverside, you have the optionality of connecting your X account as well as your YouTube channel, so that if you are recording, you can actually stream your recording directly to those channels. So sometimes I'll record the video live and stream it directly to X and YouTube. There isn't really a feature, though, to upload directly to Spotify or Apple Podcasts. At least not that I've found easily. So, and when I was actually doing the Infinite Jungle podcast for Galaxy, I learned a lot from the podcast producers there. They're called Studio Friends. They were contracted out from the company, but they gave me some great pointers of which podcast platforms are worth distributing your video to and your audio to. And they shared that it's really just YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify that are the three dominant places where people listen to podcasts. So I knew that I wanted to upload there. And so I started channels, and yeah, Riverside allows me to easily edit the video post production, and then once that's complete, I'll manually upload it to Substack. And Substack allows you to automatically redistribute to Apple Podcasts and an RSS feed. So that's what I'm doing as well.
I imagine they also would have given you good pointers as to mic setup and lighting and things like that. Something I can say mention that because that's something that I've seriously struggled with so much. I don't even think I got it right yet. There's so much trial and error. Is that the case? What kind of lighting do you have?
Yeah, luckily, I'm really thankful for the setup that I have in my home office, because a lot of this light that you see on me right now, it's just natural light from the window that's right beside me. Um, and this podcast mic is actually from CoinDesk. My days at CoinDesk. Do you remember, Noel, during COVID when we had to
Yes.
do CoinDesk consensus all
Virtual.
on video? Yes,
Yes.
virtual.
Yeah. And we all had to buy not only the little mics and the big mics and the headphones and the light. That was crazy.
Yes, you had to get a ring light, you had to get
Yeah.
it was Joanne who graciously coached us through
She was such
how
a
to.
star as well. I mean,
Yes,
not only coaching every single one of us, and there were a lot of us back then, but also then, driving through COVID to go and actually be in a studio to troubleshoot. I mean, that was epic.
it was, and it's experiences like those that still stick with me of what it
Yes.
means to, she always recommended, when you're going on video, make sure that your shirts and, I mean, I feel like I'm kind of breaking the rules by having certain patterns, but she had this document that just shows, like, how you need to position yourself and what kind of
Yep.
clothing to wear.
Don't wear white.
So yeah.
Yep.
Yep,
Don't wear a
don't wear
white shirt.
white.
Yep. That kind of stuff. And if you can stand, it just somehow looks more natural. And yeah, I
Yes.
remember all of that. She was so good at that,
Yes.
seriously, alone. And again, so many of our fellow newsletter writers go to video, and again, it takes some training, and hardly anybody ever gets that training. But then again, there are so many people who are just naturally good at it. as well. It's harder than it looks, people. It really is. Now, what we were talking before we went live that you used to do clips, but you stopped doing clips from your videos. Can you talk us through that decision process?
Yes, I it comes back down to bandwidth. When I first launched the podcast, I was all about getting it to a quality and getting it to a state that was similar to Infinite Jungle, where I had a whole team of people that were generating clips and creating the show notes for every single episode, helping to promote it, and taking that all on myself in the beginning. Wow, that was a lot of work. Editing the clips, reviewing the clips. Riverside does do a great job at suggesting what clips should be created and using AI to help generate them automatically. But even then, when I review them, they just weren't the quality of them and the kinds of information I wanted to share. It wasn't something that I was comfortable just putting out and publishing as is. I always needed to do a little bit of editing myself manually for those AI generated clips. And I just realized at the end of the day, I was like, I can't do this all on my own. I need to get some kind of an editor or help if I want to put out the clips in a high quality way. So I ended up making the decision that I wouldn't do clips until I have the bandwidth to hire someone to help me do
The
these.
budget as well. The budget.
Yes.
Hire someone because again, you don't make a lot of money writing newsletters. No.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I went through similar stuff. I tried to do audio in the early days because I know readers like to listen sometimes, as we all do, because we're not always in front of a screen or sitting quietly looking at our phone. Sometimes we like to listen while we're washing dishes, walking the dog. And so I tried to do that, but I eventually stopped because one, it's a lot of work. And I'll be honest with you, it's not so much I don't mind doing the work. It was boring. I mean, I've written the stuff. I don't want to have to now spend valuable, precious time reading it out. But I'd rather spend that valuable, precious time learning more stuff or writing new things. So eventually, technically it was difficult for me the mics and the recording and the editing and I just didn't enjoy it because I found it boring, which I guess is selfish of me, but it's my newsletter, so I can, right?
Yes, and I was going to say, I still remember your audio recordings for those newsletters, and they were so great. And now we have an AI tool that will just read in your voice, and the quality of this tool is phenomenal, Noel. There's a podcast. Do you remember who NLW is, Nathaniel from Coindesk?
Yes.
Okay, he has an incredible podcast called AI Daily, and some of his podcasts are entirely AI. His voice, it sounds like his voice, and
Really?
that he's hosting the podcast, but it's entirely AI. It's just the AI reading the script, and
And it
it's
sounds
incredible.
natural, and it
It
sounds
sounds
natural.
you wouldn't know unless he mentioned at the episode that this is generated from this AI tool. The name of the tool is slipping my mind right now, but I will send it to you.
11 Labs, could it be? 11
You know what?
Labs?
I think it is. I think it is
Yeah,
that one.
I think I tried that once, and eventually just the whole AI stuff creeped me out a
Oh,
bit, so I stopped. But you know what? I should also, Substack has this feature where you can ask its AI voice to read newsletters if you're in the app on mobile. A reader pointed this out to me as well. And so I thought, okay, I'll just leave it at that for now. But then again,
yeah.
it just creeped me out so much that I eventually stopped. But now you're nudging me to look into that a bit more because if I can just push a button and give my readers the audio I know they want, yeah, I should do that. I will look into that. Thank you, Christine. You've given me more homework. That's great. Now, on other stuff that you stopped doing, is there other things that you, again, wish we learned through experience, but what else has not worked?
Well, I had a premium offering on my Substack, which was the ACD and the BTC Toolkit. So these were designed to be evergreen resources that people could refer back to in order to get the basics, the 101 of what Ethereum development, how it works, Bitcoin development, how that works. Um, and I thought it would be a great revenue generator, a reason for why people would want to pay for the writing that I do. It turned out that most readers of mine were paying for the insights that I was sharing with them on a week to week basis about what's going on in Bitcoin and Ethereum development, as well as the access to me about any questions that they had through my subscriber chat. So those were the real revenue drivers, not necessarily the toolkits itself. And the toolkits were actually quite harder to maintain and keep up to date on a week to week basis than I thought. The time drain of 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 keeping those resources really high quality. So, both of those reasons combined, after about a year of pushing the toolkit, of marketing it, trying to get it out, I decided to deprecate these series and lean harder into the insights portion of my newsletter, and pivot to elevating more the Telegram chat that I have for premium subscribers as a reason to be a premium subscriber rather than the toolkits. So that was another kind of decision that I had to make um, along my journey as a newsletter writer.
It's a tough call because, again, you know you're gonna be disappointing some people that really like them, and also neither you nor I like not fulfilling what we set out to do. I mean, we said we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, and that's one of the reasons I loved working with you. You said you were gonna do something, and you did it. And so it's a hard call to make, but going back to what we were talking about earlier, there's limited time in the day, and what's the best use of that time?
That's exactly right. And I think breaking off also this idea that um, you have to meet every single expectation that you set as a independent content creator. I think I've created more flexibility for myself where I do set expectations, but inevitably there are going to be some that I fail to meet. And in those situations, I need to bite the bullet and I need to be quicker to pivot rather than kind of resisting and pretending to feel like something is fine when it's not fine and it's not working. So that too, I think, also the response from subscribers has really um, helped me to know that subscribers have more grace for us than we anticipate. They understand what, to some extent, and what we do, and don't have, I guess, like as strict of like expectations that maybe our former bosses used to have, or something like that.
Or maybe not as hard on us as we are on ourselves, maybe, just
Right. Better way to
maybe?
say it. Yes.
Yeah, I wanna talk to you. I have so many questions to pull on that thread. Before I do, before we get onto some more abstract stuff, back sticking on some concrete stuff for a while, how you use AI. And before we ask about that, I'm gonna bring in a question from Dano. Hi, Dano. Thanks very much for this. Dano wants to know how you've changed your approach to coverage in response to AI call summaries.
Yes. Hi, Dano. Good to see or have you join this live stream. I've generally stopped doing call summaries now, because AI has gotten so advanced. I've realized that the value that I can offer readers is not in my call summaries anymore. That used to be my job. It used to be my bread and butter at CoinDesk and at Galaxy. But with AI, I've realized that now my role is really as telling readers not what happened, but how they should think about what happened. So I rather than saying like here is the next steps for what this upgrade is going to do and here's what developers said on the call, my role as a newsletter writer and the value that I hope my newsletters can have is now, um, here's how to think about this decision that was just made on the ACD call. Um, i i do have I do have 2 ways in which I try and, share with my newsletter readers, and offer a bit more value aside from insights as well, and that's number 1, um, some people still don't know exactly where they can get these AI generated call summaries, so sometimes on these newsletters that I write for ACD After Hours, I'll say, "Okay, you can get the call summary on Forecast. Here's the direct link to see the call summary on this other site," because some of these AI generated summaries I think are quite good. So I try and be kind of like a quality control too of like which sources are good sources to go to and which are not. And then the second thing is, the way that I do my summaries, if I do them, is I try and make them more reliable and more condensed than the AI generated summaries. So oftentimes the AI generated summaries are riddled with miss they won't know the nitty-gritty of what is going on in a call, so there'll be a lot of misinformation. So if I do a call summary, I'm going to make sure that every single decision that is being recorded in my call summary are the important ones. It's communicated in a way that is more accurate and is more true to what the actual decision was, because with Ethereum governance, sometimes the decisions that are made are very people have different perspectives. They're like, no, that decision wasn't made. And other people say, yes, that decision was made. So if I'm going to do a call summary, you'll know that my perspective is the I guess the one that you can trust as being more reliable, at least, than an AI generated one. So that's how I've pivoted, I would say, with the rise of AI call summaries for the Ethereum developer calls.
How else do you use AI, if you do, in your production?
I rely on AI like an editor as well as a proofreader. So every time I've finished a draft of my newsletter, I'll run it through ChatGPT and say, "Hey, can you like edit my work? Make sure that there's no typos. Provide suggestions for areas for clarity." Um, Generate ideas for how to promote this piece of writing. I think of AI as kind of like another fellow employee that I don't have to that is not as expensive as a full-time editor or like another, I don't know, hand on deck for my operations. So that's how I lean on AI.
You're giving me some good ideas there. I hadn't thought about using AI to give me promotion recommendations because it's something that I'm not good at is the whole
Mm.
marketing and the social media. I just generally don't do it, and I know you should. So I use it as a search engine. Basically, I want to know how many barrels of oil are coming through Hormuz today. I'll ask AI. I'll ask Grok rather than Google. But yeah, you should look into that definitely some more, as well as the voice thing, which I'm going to be fretting about now. So now onto some more abstract stuff. We sort of touched on some of the emotional stresses of, getting up in the morning and setting yourself deadlines and meeting them, and then the anguish of is anyone reading what I write and how the subscriber number is doing. What has been one of your biggest frustrations?
Frustrations, I would say, has been probably twofold. The first is trying out ideas and putting in a lot of effort into projects that I think will do well, but don't. So for example, the toolkits, or putting in a lot of effort into creating clips for my podcasts and eventually having to deprecate those too because it's just not working. Um, so that I think is one area of frustration. And then tied to that is once you realize that failure is kind of not failure, but I would say like things not working out is part and parcel of this journey as a independent content creator, is the next time you try something new, the next time you're like, oh, this is something that I think will work out well, you have this kind of heart where you're a little bit worried. You're like, okay, but what if it doesn't work out? Like it didn't work out with all these other initiatives. And then what will I do? And so you start to think about like plan B, plan C, plan D. And plan D is basically like, okay, but then I would have to stop entirely my Substack and I'd have to go back to an office job. So I think that that would probably be the areas where I need to remind myself and just like cut myself short of like, okay, just stick to plan A. Just stick to plan A and see what's going to happen and iterate from there, rather than kind of allowing your mind to wander into, okay, but if it doesn't work out and you fail, then you'd have to do this. And if that doesn't work, then you'd have to do this because that's just a never ending like thought loop that doesn't end well.
What gets you most excited about what you do now? Again, we've talked about the sort of anguish, I guess, that we all go through, and we're not convinced that something's working out as we had hoped, and the pep talks we give ourselves to keep going. And what does make you excited about what you do?
I'd say this idea that I'm really making a difference in people's lives. Every time a subscriber in the chat says, this is a piece of information or news that I found really helpful or really informative, that is probably the highlight of my day. It reassures me that what I'm doing is not, um, it is beneficial. It is valuable. Um, to a small audience so far, but hopefully an audience that will grow larger. So, one of the things I'm most excited about also with the event happening on Friday is being able to see in person people who have been reading my work and get to hear from them firsthand too, what they think of it. So, yeah, I'd say that probably gives me the most joy when I see the actual impact that my work is having on people, and for that impact to be, vocalized as something that they really like value and appreciate and wouldn't be able to get anywhere else. So,
Now that's beautifully put. And for me, because I have days like this also, especially, like, why? It's the it I love learning and I love sharing what I'm learning, and I just believe that it matters. It really matters. I mean, the reason I left Genesis to focus on crypto as macro now was I wanted to focus on how crypto is impacting the macro landscape, not so much the other way around, which is a lot of what I've been doing at CoinDesk and also Genesis. Now it's when you read about Iran talking about taking toll payments in Bitcoin, when you read about Russian stablecoins moving into Africa, that kind of stuff shows that, yeah, it's actually matter. It matters. Now, that keeps me going because I also have days of burnout and days of when I'm wondering, am I actually adding anything anymore? And in the end, what keeps me going is that I just love what I do.
I think also for us, sometimes we get into like the zone when we're writing or synthesizing certain information. w- we find like a valuable gem of perspective that I think it's so cool to discover that. Like the
Yes.
feeling of getting something, of something clicks, and
A
then you're
light
like,
bulb, a
"Oh,
light bulb does go
yes."
on, doesn't it?
And then you get to publish that insight. It's the feeling of that is really cool.
Yeah. As we start wrapping up here, if anyone has any questions, do drop them in the chats. In terms of work-life balance, how do you juggle that? Because again, I can speak from experience here, but many of us who work for ourselves do struggle in drawing the line between when do you turn your computer off for the day, especially when you're working in a knowledge industry in which you just never know enough.
Yeah, I mean, I lean a lot on my faith to help me know when to stop. I think part of it is if I didn't have my faith, then what I do would be really who I am. But what often reminds me of uh, if I wanted to take a half day or if I wanted to take it easy, focus my mind on something else, the pressure of this succeeding, of my Substack succeeding, of my events succeeding, it's not, I guess, like tied to my identity. What I do doesn't define who I am, which I feel like that out of that flows a lot of just freedom and grace to uh, focus on other things like family or friends or do many other things that doesn't actually help my business at all. So business is one thing that I have that I love and that I enjoy, but it's not the be all and end all of my life, which is why I feel like I can pour into so many other things, and why on a day to day basis that actually translates to me making decisions where I don't actually feel that guilty about if I missed the deadline or if I had to deprecate a particular part of my newsletter. I think my faith has a big part of that.
And a cushion, which in turn gives a certain confidence that, yeah, if this doesn't work out, doesn't matter that much. That gives us freedom to pursue it with more energy.
Yeah, exactly. I think I actually have more uh I guess like because I'm less stressed out. I like you said, I have more to give with this business. And I also think that a lot of success when it comes to I feel like when it comes to like financial success, it's also about like timing and being in the right place at the right time. So sometimes you do really just have to wait. Like you just have to be consistent and show up And at some point, things will work out. So it takes a bit of patience. And I think in that sense, I guess like there's not a particular timeline that I'm really like gripping onto for everything having to happen on a certain timeline, which I feel like as an independent content creator is also a good and healthy mindset to have, because so much I think is a bit outside of our control, despite our independence.
Yes. Yeah, very much. And that takes a certain amount of resilience to be able to absorb. So, if I understand what you're saying correctly, and again, summarizing here before we wrap up with advice, is it's not about metrics so much as about this mattering, about the meaning. It's not the numbers, it's the why.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I had mentioned this before our recording too, but ever since I left Galaxy, definitely not when I first shared that I was leaving Galaxy, or even the first initial like couple weeks or months when I was starting up my Substack. Now, which it's been over a year now since I left Galaxy, time has flown by. But I actually get a lot less engagement, a lot less activity when it comes to my public profile and branding, interactions, engagements, likes, whatever. Than I did when I was at Galaxy. But on the flip side, the engagement that I get from the very small group of subscribers that I have, it's so much more meaningful and so much deeper impact on what I do and how I think about certain topics in the crypto industry than all of like the 10,000 or whatever, all of the activity and the followers and the kind of like likes and feedback that I was getting when I used to, yeah, be a very public like CoinDesk reporter or very public Galaxy research analyst.
Representing a
So
brand, yeah, a brand rather
yeah.
than yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. So to that, I think it's really shows that like sometimes the meaning of what you do, it goes farther in like motivating you and what you do in your actions than the numbers, like than the metrics sometimes, which can be a little bit misleading.
Yeah, and frustrating. Again, if you're chasing numbers, then other things do get compromised, and that's not really what we're about. On your engagement thing, this is something I'm hearing across the industry. I mean, even my X feed daily is full of people complaining that they get much less engagement. So perhaps, yeah, part of it is going to be shifts in algorithms, but also part of it is you don't have a brand that people think they're engaging with. It's you now. It's and quality versus quantity. Again, this is why we do what we do. It's about finding meaning and wanting to do something that we think matters.
Yeah, 100%.
So to summarize, you've dropped a lot of really useful advice already so far in this chat, but to summarize and wrap up, let's try and, bring together some key takeaways for anyone watching who either is a newsletter writer or thinking of becoming one, or even a podcast producer or video. What are 3 bits of advice you would like them to take away?
3 bits of advice. If you are an independent content creator, um, don't be afraid to pivot. Don't be afraid to acknowledge something that's not working, or an expectation that you put on yourself that you just can't meet. The sooner that you pivot away from that, the better. So, yeah, that's one thing for people that are already newsletter writers. I'd say that if you aren't a newsletter writer and you really want to get to a place or a position where you can be one, I'd say, as we talked about in the beginning of this interview, for me, what it really took is like many, many years of building up confidence in myself, building up this like desire to take a bet on myself and really put myself out there in a way that I never felt like I'd have the confidence to do. So yeah, I'd say for people that are just like considering whether this is something they want to do, I would first, yeah, build up that kind of belief. It comes, I think, from a lot of time with your community, like your mentors and your the people that you work with who have seen your work. That kind of a feedback, I think, really helps. And then also just yourself of like seeing what you can do and believing in yourself. That's something that all contributes to being able to take that step and take it with confidence.
Yeah.
Um, and then a third one, a third one.
I'll suggest one if you like.
Yes.
And that is, again, what we are just talking about. Don't stress the numbers so much. It just is not going to change anything. I mean, everyone wants more subscribers than less subscribers, but the numbers don't. They're not why we do what we do. I sometimes will tear my hair out and thinking, why aren't my subscriber numbers growing? I work really hard at this. And I think if they were half what they are, would I still be doing what I do? And the answer is yes. So why am I worried?
Yes. Yes.
So again, I think we've left people with some good takeaways here, I hope. If any of you have any questions, again, feel free to reach out to either Christine or myself on Substack. Thank you all so much for joining. I'm sorry if we've gone over time, but Christine, I could talk to you for hours, as you know. If anyone's interested in more insights about content production, newsletters, etc., join me again next week, same time, for another chat with a newsletter provider who, again, made the journey from a brand to self-employment and how challenging that can be. So again, thank you so much, Christine. Thank you. Thank you. This has been so much fun chatting to you, as it always. And thank you for sharing your experience as well as your insight with our audience.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Noelle.
Talk to you all soon. Thanks. If for anyone who didn't catch most of this and would like to catch the beginning, it will, if I read the instructions correctly, be downloaded and I'll upload it to my Substack Cryptos Macro Now. And Christine, I think you'll be able to upload it as well. I have to read the instructions. This is my first Substack Live. We're figuring this out. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Thanks, everyone.
Uh,
Enjoy the rest of your day and have a good weekend.